All right, let's jump right into this because today we are unpacking a situation that is actively reshaping the global map. We're looking at the US-Iran blockade and the absolute massive ripple effects radiating from it. We're going to break down the strategies, the human costs, and the economic tremors using nothing but the facts straight from the source. So if you're someone who loves to detangle complex geopolitical webs, you are in the exact right place. Welcome to today's Explainer.
So, $115. Why are we starting here? Well, because that is the recent price for just a single barrel of benchmark Brent crude oil. It hit this huge spike after reports surfaced that the United States is planning an extended blockade of Iranian ports and shipping. It kind of gives us a relatable economic stake in the story right out of the gate. Before we even get into the military maneuvers or the political rhetoric, we have to recognize that this conflict is already reaching right into your wallet at the gas pump. But to really understand the why behind this price surge, we have to look at the epicenter. In that epicenter, it's Washington. Take a look at this quote directly from former President Donald Trump on his Truth Social platform. He posted an AI-generated image of himself with explosions in the background and the caption, "No more Mr. Nice Guy," along with the text, "Iran can't get their act together. They don't know how to sign a non-nuclear deal. They better get smart soon." This rhetoric really highlights a strategy of immense economic and military pressure. It's a clear message that the U.S. intends to force Iran to the negotiating table by effectively suffocating its maritime trade. And Iran, on their end, has vowed to keep disrupting traffic through the vital Strait of Hormuz. To wrap our heads around all this, here's our roadmap. 1. The Washington War Room. 2. Regional spillover in Lebanon. 3. Global economic shockwaves. And 4. The crisis inside Iran. Starting with part 1, the Washington War Room, strategy and costs. $25 billion. I mean, wow. That is the financial cost of the Iran war to the United States so far, according to what the Pentagon's finance chief recently disclosed to lawmakers. It is a staggering deployment of capital for a conflict that is moving incredibly fast, and it really forces us to ask, what exactly is all that money funding, and is the strategy actually working? Well, we're seeing a really stark divide in Washington over that exact question. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth recently defended the military's approach to the House Armed Services Committee. He stated that Iran's underground nuclear facilities have been obliterated, and they're executing what he calls the North Korea strategy, basically using conventional strikes to prevent Iran from slow-walking their way to a nuclear weapon. But there is intense pushback from Representative Adam Smith, the top Democrat on the committee. He pointed out the lack of progress from operations like Midnight Hammer, arguing that despite all the bombings, Iran's nuclear ambitions continue, and they're actively building a conventional shield of thousands of missiles. It's a fundamental debate over whether applying this sheer force is actually breaking Iran's resolve. Now, add to this complex puzzle the testimony from the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane. When asked if the military had plans for the risk of Iran blockading the Strait of Hormuz, he emphasized that they always provide the president with a full range of carefully considered options. But he also shared a pretty fascinating logistical reality during the hearing. The only U.S. minesweepers in the Gulf had actually been moved to Singapore weeks before the war started. He did note they have other classified capabilities, of course, but it really underscores the immense, high-stakes game of chess being played with maritime security in one of the world's most critical choke points. Let's move on to part 2, regional spillover in Lebanon and the crumbling ceasefire. Over 400 tons. That is the sheer, mind-boggling scale of explosives the Israeli Defense Forces recently used to obliterate a Hezbollah tunnel in the town of Kanara in southern Lebanon. The IDF reported that this tunnel stretched for 2 kilometers and contained living quarters and weapons. While the military objective was infrastructure, just the sheer volume of explosives gives you a sense of the earth-shattering force being unleashed right now in this region. But we really have to contrast that macro military action with the micro civilian toll. For the residents of that village, watching 400 tons of explosives go off didn't just look like a tactical strike. They said it reminded them of the horrific scale of the Beirut port explosion in 2020. Whole villages and homes are literally being turned to dust. In the course of less than a week, over 40 people were killed as the ceasefire essentially completely crumbled. The local population is effectively trapped right in the middle of Hezbollah's retaliations and Israel's bombardments. And just look at this. According to a UN-backed report, the conflict has now left almost a quarter of Lebanon's entire population facing acute hunger. The physical destruction of infrastructure directly severs supply chains, which turns a geopolitical proxy battle into a literal daily fight for basic survival for millions of everyday civilians. Which brings us to part 3,
Global economic shockwaves, the price of the blockade. Okay, so the Strait of Hormuz handles roughly a fifth of the world's oil and gas. When you strangle that, international commerce literally gasps for air. Just look at the wildly diverse impacts happening in India right now. In the aviation sector, massive spikes in jet fuel prices have Indian airlines warning that some major carriers are on the absolute verge of collapse. They're practically begging the government for tax cuts just to survive. Then, look at the totally different yet equally devastated Firozabad glass industry. Known as India's glass city, it produces 70% of the country's glass. But those furnaces need gas sourced right through the Strait of Hormuz. With movement choked, supplies are restricted by 20%, leading to a massive 25% dip in production. Let's bring this high-level geopolitics right down to the kitchen table for a second. This is a quote from Umesh Babu, a worker in Firozabad. He says, "I'm unable to even pay for my children's school fees. Working with glass is the only skill I have. Because the furnaces are starved of gas, the work week for 150,000 daily wage earners has been brutally slashed from 6 days down to 4 or 5. They are feeling the direct, real-world heat of a blockade happening thousands of miles away." And why does this matter on a global scale? Well, it's because businesses like those glass furnaces are part of the micro, small, and medium enterprises sector, which makes up over 30% of India's GDP and is the second largest employer in the entire nation. These labor-intensive sectors are the highly vulnerable backbone of one of the world's largest economies. So when they stall out because of energy blockades, it sends economic tremors across the entire globe. Let's turn inward for part 4, the crisis inside Iran, pressure and factions. We really have to look at what's happening to the target of this blockade, because the domestic toll on everyday Iranians is entirely unprecedented. We're talking about a 61-day total internet blackout, which has severely crippled communication and online businesses. Because of that and the war's physical damage, an estimated 4 million jobs have been lost. On top of all that, the official inflation rate is hovering around a suffocating 70%, with basic food items doubling or tripling in price. And amidst this economic collapse, there's been an intensified security crackdown, with at least 21 reported executions since the war started. The pressure cooker is literally at maximum capacity. 1.8 million. To put this crisis into perspective, that is the staggering black market exchange rate of Iranian rials to just one single US dollar right now. Currency tracking websites report this record low as a direct result of the US blockade. The Iranian economy, which honestly was already in shambles before the conflict even began, is practically in free fall, just evaporating the savings and purchasing power of millions of citizens. So is the regime actually cracking under all this pressure? Let's neutrally decode the internal split happening within Iran's leadership. On one side, you have the hardliners, who are closely tied to the military. They fear that any form of negotiation with the West shows weakness and will inevitably lead to a Soviet-style collapse of the Islamic Republic. But pushing back are the pragmatists. They look at the economic ruin and argue for more of a China model, basically maintaining their authoritarian grip, but prioritizing economic survival and national interest over strict revolutionary ideology. But make no mistake here, while these factions fiercely disagree on the day-to-day tactics, both sides fundamentally prioritize the ultimate survival of the regime above absolutely everything else. Which leaves us with this final, incredibly provocative question to close out today. As Washington spends billions, as villages in Lebanon turn to dust, and as global industries from aviation to glassmaking face absolute ruin, who is going to cave first? Will the unprecedented economic strangulation force the factions in Iran to the negotiating table, or will the immense pain inflicted on global commerce force the rest of the world to back down? It is a high-stakes standoff with